Hey crafty people, I'm Sarah, also known as Craft Nerd, because I'm a nerd who loves to craft. Over the years I've dabbled in most types of crafting, although for the past decade or so I've been doing primarily card making and mixed media art. I've recently embarked on a junk journaling journey that I hope you'll join me on. Today we are going to create a fabric junk journal cover using an Amazon bubble mailer, and we're also going to create a journal topper to go with it. And this is one of those projects that I've been working on for months because it keeps getting set aside for other projects. You may notice in the video my fabric tack goes from being in its original bottle to the Sugar Bell bottle, and that's because there was about a 4-month gap between when I started the project and when I finished it. And if you are a seamstress, please look away. It's not going to be pretty. Let's get crafting. As promised, I'm going to show you how I did the junk journal cover for my sister's sea turtle junk journal using a Amazon bubble mailer. And I did add a little bit of gesso over the prime just to make it less noticeable, because you can kind of see it through the fabric if you look really hard. And this is fabric I picked up at Walmart, and I'm going to use this for the outside, and I cut it a little bit bigger than needed, and I'll trim that down. And then on the inside, I'm going to use pink fabric that I also got from Walmart. And see, with the pink, you can really see through it. So I will probably put a bit more gesso over the spots that you can really see through the pink fabric, but I will also be embellishing, so hopefully that will cover some, and we'll have the signature sewn in the middle, so that will cover some of it up. So I'm not too worried about being able to see the prime through. Now I'm planning on sewing this on my sewing machine, and so I'm going to start by attaching it with a little bit of fabric glue just so it stays in place while I'm sewing, because one, I'm not the greatest of seamstresses, and two, it'll just make life easier if it's attached. And I'm just gonna do mostly glue down the middle, and I'm using fabric tack, and so I'm just gonna add some on. And to spread it out evenly, I got a silicone brush that I picked up on Amazon to smooth out the paint or the glue. And again, this is just to keep it kind of in place for when I take it to my sewing machine, so I don't have to worry about it like shifting and making a mess, because again, not the greatest seamstress in the world. I'm a paper crafter, not a fabric crafter. And I'm going to fold it over so I have nice clean edges on the journal. And I will apply just a little bit of glue along the very edge to keep it in place. And then I'll stitch above where the glue is so I don't gunk up my sewing machine. So I'm going to do that. And I'm just smoothing it out so that there's not like a thick line that might be visible. The bottom or top, I don't know that I've decided which it is yet. Do the other side. Works better if it's on screen. Probably should just flip this around. That'll make life a little bit easier. Again, smoothing out the glue. I'm gonna flip this up. And so this is gonna be our outside cover with the lovely pink flowers on the blue background. For this side, I need to grab a pair of scissors, and I'm not sure where my fabric scissors went. I have two pairs of fabric scissors I use for cutting fabric. One of them, I have no idea where it went. They disappeared. And this pair, every time I go to use them, seems to have disappeared. So we're gonna fold this side over, but I don't want all this bulk at the corner. So we're gonna trim some of that away. So then when we fold it over, we have a nice neat corner. Probably should cut that a little neater. We're going to do the other side as well. Please excuse my dog barking in the background. All right, so just to make sure I have a nice neat corner over here, I'm going to add a little glue. Probably a little more glue than I wanted. And this is going to be fun when I go to edit this, because if the dogs are around, they're going to hear my dog barking and think it's a dog outside barking and start barking. And I know this because it's happened before when editing videos. All right, nice clean corners. This side, I'm going to trim down because it's longer than it needs to be. So let's trim there. And again, we're going to trim out some of this corner material so that it's not so bulky in the corner. Probably shifted this over a little so I had a little bit more leeway on there, but it'll be fine. I'm going to turn this under a little so that I have a nice pretty corner over here. Okay, so that's this laid down, and again, I'm going to take this all to my sewing machine and stitch around the edges to further secure the fabric to the bubble mailer. For the pink fabric, now I've already done it on the top edge. I've folded it down and done the gluing because I want a nice finished edge again, and I tried to do it as straight as possible. I'm going to also turn in each of the sides and then figure out how long I need it to be so I don't have a bunch of extra length. And to help me keep it straight, I pulled out my Wendy Vecchi Make Art Studio board because it's got a nice magnetic ruler, sorry about the glare, that I can line up on a straight line, and then I can take my fabric, fold it over, add magnets, and so I can keep it to being as straight as I can get for having a nice straight line here. Again, I'm gonna take out the bulk at the corners. This is going underneath, so I don't need to be as worried about how neat it is, and you know, it'll help if the magnet wasn't so close to the scissors, because you know, metal scissors gonna stick to the magnet. So I took out the bulk. I'm gonna put this here. I'm gonna glue down this section. And then as I did when gluing down the front, I'm gonna just do a little bit of glue at the very edge to glue this down, because it's gonna get sewn on. So it doesn't need to be thoroughly glued down, just enough to keep everything neat and in place till I take it to my sewing machine. And this fabric's on the thinner side too, or is on the thinner side. So I'm trying to be very careful with my application of glue, because you can see it showing through in a few spots. So I'm figuring I will just do some kind of embellishing on the inside covers once the cover's fully assembled, to hide any unsightly glue spots. So that's as straight as I'm gonna get it. I'll flip it over and do this side. Again, actually, let's double check how much we have and how much we need. So I want a little bit of the blue showing all around. And it's not entirely perfect, because I don't think this is entirely perfectly straight. But we'll need it to fold there, so probably, oh. A little bit, and that's probably off screen. I just put a little slit in to cut that. And then I'm gonna take it and do like we did for the other sides. Line it up so that we get kind of a straight line. At our corner, we're gonna trim away the excess. So we don't want a ton of bulk. And I'm just gonna trim a little bit more, make sure it's not gonna show on the other side. All right. Now this should fit along here nicely, and it fits along here nicely, and it's as straight as I'm gonna get it. There's a little bit of wiggle room, so I can adjust this to line up better over here. And am I even on screen? No, I'm not. Okay, so it was going a little wonky over here, so I just pulled the fabric up because the fabric tack had not fully dried yet, and adjusted the placement so that I can have pretty much a little bit of the blue showing all around. And for this, we're gonna wanna fold there, so I think I'm gonna go ahead, fold it under, make sure we like everything before I do any gluing for that, so we can adjust accordingly. And despite my best efforts, none of this is straight, but it's as good as it's gonna get, and it's handmade and it doesn't have to be perfect. So we're gonna do that. And I'm actually gonna leave, given how thin the pink is, I think I'm gonna leave the fabric on to cover up more of the labeling on there. And of course I'll cut out along the corner areas because that's too much bulk. We'll cut away the excess in the corner. Put a little glue here, just to make sure it stays down nice and neat until, again, I can get it stitched. And again, on this side, gonna trim away the excess. Glue that bit down. And then that will attach with a little bit of glue in the middle, just to keep it in place till I can sew it down all the way. So I'm gonna go ahead and, again, just put a little glue in the middle. It's basically just keeping this sucker in place for me to take to my sewing machine. I'm just trying to line it up as best I can so it's nice and neat. And so once it's stitched on all the way, this will be the cover of the journal, and that'll be the inside. And we'll definitely do stuff to make sure you don't see the word prime all over the place. I'm gonna take this and stitch it off camera at my sewing machine because my sewing skills are rudimentary at best, and so nobody needs to be watching me sewing stuff as an example of how to do it. So I remembered before I went to the sewing machine that I wanted to add some fabric pockets that I was going to sew on when I sewed the front and inside covers together. So I cut out a few of the flowers from the scrap left over from doing the front cover. This pocket is a piece of fabric that I picked up at the local Girls and Boys thrift store near me, and it's actually this like beigey color, and I used Salvaged Patina and Peacock Feather distress sprays to color it so that it went better with my color scheme that I've got going on. And so that's going to get folded in there, and I'm probably just going to glue these guys on to the front before or maybe after I sew it in. So those are going to go there. Then for this side, especially because you can kind of see the blue through there, I took a piece of fabric. This is leftover from part of that thrift store shopping spree. I bought a valance for like, I think a little kid's bedroom based on the tag, like for a baby bedroom. And I cut the whole thing apart because it had pretty lace at the one end. So I pulled it apart and this was left over. So I colored this again with the same Salvaged Patina and Peacock Feathers Distress Spray Stain to get it again in the blues that I want for this. And then I decided that was too plain. So I took one of the scrap bits of the pink fabric folded it over to make it a little thicker, used my pinking shears to trim it on the end so it also matched the edge of this, which was already like that. And then I put a piece of lace on top, and to attach the lace to the piece of pink fabric, I decided I was just going to stitch on some flowers. And so what I did was basically a French knot in pink. I did a row of them all the way down in the middle of that like little oval of the lace. And then I went back and did it in green. It's part of a daisy chain stitch, if you're familiar with stitching. So that's what I did for that, and that'll go on here, and it'll cover up this line of stitching here, which isn't all that exciting, and go on. And then I'm going to take this to my sewing machine, and I'm going to stitch all around and stitch in my pockets and make sure everything's all nicely stitched in. And then I will come back and show you the results. So I have gone ahead and done all of the stitching, and it came out pretty good. Not perfect, but hey, it's handmade. It's not supposed to be perfect. And I definitely, my sewing machine did not like going through all of the layers over here on this side, but we've got the little tuck spot. I've got my little pocket on here. Now, the only thing I noticed was after I got this all done is the pink fabric I used for the inside really wasn't thick enough to cover up the Amazon Prime logo on the bubble mailer I used. So I just cut out some of the flowers from the cover fabric, and I'm placing those down, just kind of disguise the prime. I'm not too worried about that one because the signatures are going to get sewn in along here, so you shouldn't see that one. And I'm just going to take Fabri-Tac and glue everything down using Fabri-Tac. And I'm going to use one of my little silicone spatula thingies to smooth out the Fabri-Tac, because if you don't want a thick layer, because otherwise what'll happen is you'll see glue seepage. So I'm just gonna, off to the side, apply some glue, making sure I get all of the edges really good. So that's basically what I'm going to do with all of these pieces. I don't know that you need to see me glue every single one down. So I'm going to do that, and I'll come back and we will do some additional finishing touches to our cover. So I've gone ahead and glued everyone in, and I've made sure they're glued down well. And I've been going back and forth about what I want to do for the cover and the closure. And the problem is I really love the look of this fabric, so I don't want to put anything permanent on here. So I think what I'm going to do is make a journal topper. So I've gathered some supplies. I've got some comic book board, which is what I'm going to use as the base for the topper. So I have some lace that I dyed with some pink powdered pigment. Say that 5 times fast. And I printed out a couple of pages from an Abrotique printable. And it's either blue peonies or just peonies. I can never remember which. But I'll put a link to it in the description box down below. That's going to serve as the toppers on this. Now, to start with, I am going to put the fabric on, but I don't want so much white showing through. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a blending brush and some distress ink, and I'm just going to grab Tumbled Glass because I just want to get a little color. It doesn't have to be very dark. I just don't want it to be white. Now this piece of comic book board has got a glossy finish side and a matte side. I think the glossy is what I'm going to put on the bottom because I don't think the ink's going to adhere as well. Flip it over and ink the other side as well. let's just, yep, no, that's on good, okay. Now I'm just gonna attach the lace using some Fabri-Tac, and I'm gonna use a silicone little spatula thing to spread it out. And make sure I get a good line on the edges. Problem is it's starting to dry. I need to move a little bit faster. We're gonna flip it over. Trim off that piece of excess. Make sure I've got some good glue at the corner. So we'll hold this down. I'm gonna wrap over this way. I think I am gonna go ahead and just cover the whole thing. And I'm gonna trim off our excess. Don't know if you can hear my dog. He's having some noisy dreams apparently. Gonna give that a second to dry and trim off the excess. All right, there's the front. This is gonna go on the front. Now for this corner, I am going to put together a little fabric cluster, and I've already picked out the pieces that I'm going to use. So I've got a bit of the pink fabric. Then I've got some blue tulle, a little leftover scrap of the blue fabric, a little more of the tulle, a piece of lace that I cut off a blouse, I think, that I picked up at my local thrift store. And then this is a cluster of tulle that I used a candle to kind of melt to make kind of a flower shape, and a little pink brad, and I'm just gonna poke that through the center and then close the feet of the brad. I actually have a video where I made some fabric clusters and I show you how to melt the tulle. I'll link that video down below. So that's gonna go in that corner. And then I went through my bits and bobs, and these are two from a Shabby Dabby Doodah labels kit that I absolutely love. And this is from My Porch Prints kit of faux stamps. I will put links for both of those down below, and I'm going to ink our edges. I'm going to use a little Kitsch Flamingo for the pink piece. And this is just because I cut these out, I don't want any of the white showing from where I cut it out. So I'm just going to do that. And then for the blue pieces, I am going to use Tumbled Glass, which those are not on screen. Tumbled Glass. And I'm going to add some blue to that. And I'm just going to do a little cluster down here at the bottom. Just to add a little bit more interest. Now, before I glue everything down, I'm going to put this on probably a piece of cardstock to give it a little bit more weight. Because I printed this on Hammer Mill, I think it's 100-pound color copy cardstock, I think is what it's called, but it's not as heavy as a cardstock. Like, it's thinner than a 65-pound weight cardstock, but it's heavier than most copy papers, and I just really like how Printables print on it, and it has a very satiny feel to it. But because I'm gluing it down onto a piece of fabric, I want to back it a little so it doesn't like get lumpy and bumpy and all that good stuff. So I'm just gonna glue this onto this scrap piece of cardstock I have, and I'm gonna use art glitter glue. And I'm actually gonna do the same thing with the back piece, except for this one, I'm gonna use a spare piece of comic book board to attach it to, because my plan is, for the closure, is I'm gonna run a ribbon behind this piece, like between this piece and this piece, to serve as the closure. And I'm just gonna trim this down. And this piece, now the scrap piece of comic book board is a little bit narrower, so I'm just going to trim off that edge and then trim this down. And glue this corner down. And I'm going to ink my edges. Again, just using some tumbled glass. The whole idea just to take away the white edge. All right, so this is going to go down on the front, and I'm going to use fabric tack because I'm attaching it to fabric. Really make sure I get my corners good. And then I'm going to use fabric tack again to attach the cluster up in the corner. I'm going to use my art glitter glue to do the little cluster down here at the bottom, since I'm keeping it on the paper. I didn't glue all of that down because I remembered I wanted to stick this underneath. So we'll do that and then just add a little glue underneath to make sure this is down all the way. And just add this little guy down here. Now for the back, and I probably should have waited to add this until I did the back part. I've pulled out some ribbon from my stash, and I think what I may do is just kind of pull some out. Stick this piece here and just glue the ribbon down to the center. And I think I'm just gonna hold off because I don't have the signature fully finished yet, so I don't know how thick this is gonna be to start with. So I don't want to decide on my ribbon length just yet. And then we're just gonna right side up, yes. Just double checking it's right side up. We're gonna put this on. Center that up. Press it down. There we go, and then that will serve as the closure. And I probably should have left a little bit more hanging off this side, but I can always leave extra this way so that it can be tied like that. And I think I may put just a dab of fabric tack down to keep this lace from bunching up like that. Okay, so there's one last thing I want to do before I finish with this cover for now, and that is put an eyelet in here so that I can add a dangle later on. So I'm gonna grab an eyelet and a washer. And I've also pulled out a Copic marker in pink because you can change the color of metallic washers with alcohol ink. So I'm gonna turn this guy pink. Also gonna do the washer that goes underneath. And this should be dry. When you squish the eyelet down, it kind of smushes this part out and around, so I'm just going to ink all of that as well, just to make sure everything's pink when I install the eyelet. So there we now have a pink eyelet instead of a gold one. So that way, what I like about this technique is it means I don't have to buy all the colors to have colored eyelets. All right, I'm gonna pull out my crocodile. I think, nope, it's not set correctly. Let's see. And every time I go to do this, I need to pull it out. One day I might remember what the settings are without pulling out the thing, but not sure when that will be. All right, So I've got, yeah, I'm gonna figure out, that's where my signatures are gonna be sewn in. I think I wanna stick the eyelet right about here. So I'm gonna punch that out, clean that out. And I know these washers are a little bigger than a 3/16 of an inch, which is the hole punch on this side. So I'm just gonna punch next to it again. Make sure I've cleared everything out. And well, hopefully I didn't screw up my stitching. And I'm gonna put the eyelet in, the washer down. And just gonna go ahead and use my crocodile to set it. And there we go. We now have a pink washer or eyelet in our piece. So that's all for today. I will come back when I have made more progress on this journal and show you what I've been working on. If you've enjoyed this video, please do all the things that lets YouTube know you enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave me a comment down below. Thanks for joining me, and happy crafting.